paradigm. And how do you fight that when you go into these companies? Because I'm sure many people still feel that way.
Yeah, this is really a really good comment that I think does deserve some thoughtful response. But from a management perspective, I just like for the listening audience or even those who are viewing us live to think of a circle and visualize a pizza, and then break that into 8 different pies, and then take the 2 pies, and on the one pie on the right side of the pizza, write the word management, and then on the other pie that touches that management pie, write the word leadership, and then now look at it in your mind's eye and see that there is an intersection.
Right.
So on the outer sphere of this circle, of this pie, if you would, you can see that the pizza pie it's larger, it expands outwards. And then as you kind of follow the pie towards the center, it narrows to a triangular apex, if you would. So that the leadership concept and the management concept, both disciplines intersect, and you can see that where they meet, it's really small. It's a really, it's just 2 points that they're touching each other.
Right.
And I think that's probably where the confusion comes in, and so it's an obvious confusion. There's nothing wrong with, sort of misunderstanding the 2 different disciplines. So last time we talked about leadership, and we really simplified leadership, and we said leadership equals responsibility. We utilized that mathematical equation saying L equals R, therefore leadership equals responsibility. Well, today we're talking about management, and one of the things that really came to mind as we get into this discussion, and I'll give you the definition in a minute, but it's about managing expectations. And I remember I got really into our conversation last time, and I gave a personal example of something that I didn't understand, and we were talking about the American flag and the fact that some certain people treat it in different kinds of way, and honestly, I wasn't even trying to manage the conversation. I was just saying something out there that I felt, and some of the responses we got I thought were pretty interesting. And I felt like I should have done a better job of articulating my point, so that I wouldn't abridge the First Amendment, if you would. So, as a manager and even as a leader, we do have to have certain abilities to manage expectations for the outcomes or the things that we're trying to accomplish. So let's go back to how we opened, talking about this management style that that looks to make people do certain things. And you almost describe really a form of governance within an organization.
Right.
Yeah. So that is an autocratic type of governance, if you think about it, to where, now at the risk of alienating some people, I'm just going to use an example. So when you look at the manufacturing industry, the way that Mr. Frederick Taylor, a bunch of years ago, and he was the author or the designer of the scientific management, if you would, he designed about 5 or 6 different steps that were utilized in the manufacturing industry and are still used today in order to ensure productivity. Well, in that design, he looked at the employee or the human being, as part of the design, or as a cog, if you would, in the machine. And the way that he designed that scientific management model was to ensure that the people were trained to do the best for the organization to produce the better outcome to create a profit. Well, by doing so, he eliminated the employee's ability to have a voice within the organization. So, and I think that's what you were alluding to. Some organizations are being so autocratic and are so top down in their organizational design that often leaves the human side out of the people within the team, to actually have a say so in their own lives. So, and it creates resentment, it creates a bunch of different things, and then we bump it all up to management. And in a way, they're right. So now to define it, I guess for the sake of this conversation, as we kind of go forward with it. So last time we also talked and said that the leadership is a skill, and it is a skill that is learned over time. Well, management is also a skill that is also learned over time. Now, managers can be leaders, and in many cases, they play supporting roles that are managerial / leadership roles within an organization. But the huge distinction that I wish that somebody would either agree or disagree with me so we can have a conversation is that leadership is about people, is about influencing people to do things. And management is about resources. It's about managing things, but managing budgets, schedules, and things of that nature. So management is task oriented in the art or the science of management, to where they look for results in a way that are very quickly, because they respond to a bottom line. To where leadership, it's more creative and it's more risk taking than a manager would be. However, and I want to close this and give you a moment to chime in. But what I want to make a point here that because the way you introduced me, and I think you're right on. I have a passion for leadership, but what I've learned in the past 40 years is that very few leaders have both skills. Okay, so very few leaders have the leadership skills and the management skills. And that's why teamwork is very important, because we need both skills to run organizations, to be productive and to be fruitful. But those leaders that possess both skills, are able to really affect growth a lot quicker, because they can not only just lead and influence, but they can do a better job of managing expectations.
Yeah, the best managers that I worked with in my career, and I'm still young. I'm going on 74, so I got a long way to go. And
that's right.
Were those people who didn't tell me what to do, but allowed me to be me. And I'll give you an example. I worked for this multinational corporation, and I was given a job assignment that was so incredibly difficult. The two people before me actually got sick on the job. And these guys were a lot more talented, and I'll be very honest with you, I always thought they were a heck of a lot smarter than I was, and I was given this job, I don't know why. At first I thought it was punishment. But I came back, and my boss's name was Bill, and I won't mention his last name or anything like that. He unfortunately passed away at a very young age. But I went to him after being there for 3 weeks, and I sat down in his office. Instead of going to the center, the office that I was in charge of, I went to his office. He was a higher level manager than I was. And I said, Bill, I want to thank you very much for this opportunity. I said, but I realized, that unfortunately I'm not the man for the job. I don't think it's ever possible for me to do this. He said, thank you, Joe. And we stood there, and I was waiting for him to say, well, I'll get someone else to replace you. I'll see about transferring you or whatever. And he says, is there anything else? I said, well, what do I do now? He said, well, go back to work. And I looked at him, I said, did I not make myself clear? He said, Joe, let me tell you something. Anybody who comes into my office and tells me what a great job that they're doing, I start worrying. He said, I don't have to worry anymore. He said, you're doing that for me. Now get the hell back to work. And he was the best boss I ever had. But there's this concept that if you're a manager, you go from, if you're a worker, you're a nice guy. But once you're a manager, you can't be a nice guy anymore. You got to be really almost mean and rotten. And that's how you define managers. And the best managers I had were the most benevolent people, and gave me a tremendous amount of flexibility, more flexibility than I would have given myself. And I guess the conclusion that I came to from this is that you don't manage people, you manage the process.
Yeah, so I think we're both almost violently
excuse
agreeing.
me, let me make him say, we have a couple of callers. Before you answer, would you like to take a couple of callers before you answer that question?
Oh, absolutely. Please, let's
yes,
do that.
let me do that because I've been hanging. Which line was holding on longest?
760
All right.
first.
Caller, you're
on at the same time.
Caller, area code 760, you're on the air. You have a question or comment.
Well, hi there. Yes, my name is Dr.
You're I can hardly hear you. Hold on a second. Let's adjust the phone lines. She's very low. I can hardly hear her. Is it the everything seems to be live. Are you speaking directly into your phone? What about the top things?
I am, yes.
Yeah. I can hardly hear you.
I can hear very good.
You can hear it very well. It's on our end then. Could you turn everything up or whatever? All the way up. Everything's all the way up. Caller, you speak again, please.
Now?
Very, very low. I don't know what's wrong. We have a problem. I can hardly hear you.
I can hear. I can hear.
All right. Mr. Gutierrez can hear you. So why don't you ask your question or make your comment, please?
Okay, I'll make it quick since it's a little bit of a crunch time. In further support, I wanted to, first of all, thank you guys for doing this. This is a wonderful show. In further support of what you were saying, Joe, that your comment about your story reminded me of Colonel Powell's pyramid. I think it's called the Pyramid of Success for Leaders, and it's that sometimes you piss people off if you're going to effectively lead, because we can't make everybody happy all the time. But in further support of what George was saying about leaders and managers, we lead people and we manage things. We manage processes and policies, rules, stuff like that. But in order to get anything done, because we're managing things, we have to do it through people. So the core of everything that we do is through people. So the key is to teach our managers how to lead, because they will be able to better manage their people.
Right. I concur with that. Absolutely. George?
No, I think. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Beeman. That is a great comment. So to piggyback a little bit on both of you's point of view, well, one of the things that General Powell also stood behind as part of the lessons that he learned from both, being a leader and a manager, was that sometimes you have to be brutally honest. And I think it goes back to how some of our current leaders and even managers take that particular concept and they misuse it, and they misuse it in an abhorrent kind of way, because they become very agitated, they become very loud, very in your face, and then it becomes very confrontational. So we need people, and people need to be, really the most important thing that we serve from both the leadership and managerial perspective. It doesn't mean you can't be honest. It doesn't mean you can't be brutal. You just don't have to be callous. And there are certain ways of dealing with folks, especially when you have to be that brutal. And you can do that in private. You can confront the behaviors, and a lot of times when you do that, what you find out is when it's done properly, you are able to influence the changes in the behaviors that you're hoping, to achieve. So thank you, Dr. Beeman. I appreciate your comment.
Yes, George, we're about out of time. We've exceeded our 15 minutes or so. Would you like to make some closing comments?
Yeah, thank you very much, and I'll do it quickly. I think leadership and management go hand in hand. The very few that possess both skills are probably very gifted leaders, and those that don't, what I would suggest is that embark on a professional leadership development process that allows you, to reach those heights.
Yeah. Well, your organization can hire someone that I would consider a corporate exorcist, right? And you can go through this exorcism to get all these wild misconceptions of management out, okay? If I find someone, I'll let you know. Have them give you a call, okay?
All right, good. Give me a call.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gutierrez. I appreciate very, very much. Let's see. We have another caller on the line. George, you want to take the other caller, or you want to?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take
okay.
the other caller.
What area code is that?
918.
918 area code. You're on the air. Please, your question or comment.
George, this is Dr. Jeff Stewart. I'm struck in the conversation you just had by an underlying theme, and that theme is responsibility. Because with every role, whether it's formal or informal, the ability to respond is first and foremost in any other consideration, whether it's metric for things or metric for people. And we talk about it in go-to-market as responsiveness to the customer. We talk about it in innovation as the responsiveness of our steering, of our improvement process. And we talk about it in the invention of a business, essentially as our ability to get the idea quickly and put it into action. So responsibility is key, and the ability to respond is crucial. I just wanted to add that as a comment to you, because I feel that all of you are really circling around a major airport here in the world of business and economic value creation.
No, so thank you very much, Dr. Stewart. If I would be allowed a few minutes to kind of address those two topics, because Dr. Stewart has really touched on two huge things here that I think they're worth talking about. So think about what's going on today in the American discourse at the national level, and then think of it in terms of the leadership responsibility that we're all talking about, and then think about responsiveness in both as a leader and as a business person. So when Dr. Stewart talks about responsiveness from a business perspective, he's really talking about agility. Does a business have the agility to respond to either market conditions or to customer requires or changing environments? Now, those businesses that are the biggest have a biggest struggle, because it's very difficult sometimes, to change directions. When we're talking about responsiveness from a leadership perspective at the individual level or at the executive level, then we're talking about our ability to communicate. And this is where it really sort of, gets us all in trouble. And that's why I wanted the audience to sort of visualize the national discourse. Because the tongue in our bodies, so if you think of our bodies as a system, and as an organism that's got different parts to it, well, the one that we as individuals are least able to control is the tongue. And a lot of times, that's what gets us in trouble. And that's why when we opened the show this afternoon, I talked about, the huge responsibility of being up in the open air, and just saying certain things just for the sake of saying it. I think leaders have to be responsible for the things that they say, and that they're careful enough how they communicate it, because they do have an impact, on the people that they're trying to influence. So having that control on the things that we say and how we say it truly reflects on the character that we have as leaders.
Okay. Thank you very much, Doctor, for calling in. And George, thank you very much for being with us. We're going to have another segment. Our next segment will be on communications, and we'll be back with you on that. Okay?
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Folks, this is the end of today's broadcast. We'd like to thank you for listening in. And we're going to have another session with Dr. Gutierrez, Mr. Gutierrez. And we're going to be talking about communications in the business world. So stay well and stay tuned.